I want to welcome to the stage Shade McDaniel. Shade is our Youth Programs Director, and she's going to take us to the next panel. Please welcome Shade.
Well, good morning. It's so good to see all of you here. I get to see some of my colleagues from the past and future colleagues, so I'm really happy to be up here today. Like Gloria said, my name is Shade McDaniel. I'm the Director of Youth Programs here at the All-Stars Project, and it's my distinct pleasure to introduce you all today to Dr. Lenore Flamm. In 2014, I, like many of you here today, have never heard Dr. Flamm speak. It was at the Afterschool Growth Conference right here in this room when I was first introduced to her unique brand of honest conversations. Dr. Flamm is the co-founder, along with Dr. Fred Newman, of the All-Stars Project. She's a developmental psychologist and a grassroots educator who's been innovating and leading the All-Stars programs from the beginning. She has a long history of activism. She ran for president of the United States of America and made history in 1988 when she became the first woman and the first African American to get on the ballot in all 50 states. Yeah, I'm waiting for applause for that, okay? Since meeting Dr. Flamm 2 years ago at the Afterschool Growth Conference, I had many hard conversations with her where I found myself way outside my comfort zone. I remember one of the first occasions Dr. Flamm asked me to tell her about myself, and I failed miserably. How can you do that, right? Well, she stopped me and said, "Tell me something you don't want anybody to know about you." And I said, wow, there I am again, standing way outside my comfort zone. Like if this room was the comfort zone, I was somewhere in Delaware, okay? So I took her direction, and I seriously did some self-reflection, and after days of digging deep, I hit on something really important to share with her and others, and it started to create our relationship. I admitted that I had grappled with the texture of my hair in connection to the darkness of my skin when growing up and entering the workforce. I had to ask myself, why did I ask the hairdresser to blow out every kinky curl that was in my hair, just so that way I can fit in more, or better yet, stand out less with straight hair and dark skin? And that was an honest conversation that I had with myself, and it's allowed me to connect and have truthful conversations with youth and adults since then. So when I reflect on what has moved me about Dr. Flamm, and I think what would certainly move you today, is this. She epitomizes a certain kind of freedom. Freedom from closed and limited thoughts. Free from judgment and self-pity. And today I invite you to experience the freeness that Dr. Lenore B. Flamm has facilitated for me and for many and thousands of young people and adults all over the country in this next panel entitled Having Honest Conversations with Young People in Poor Communities. Welcome, Dr. Flamm.
Hi, everybody. After that introduction, I don't know what you might expect. You all look wonderful, and I'm very glad to be here. What I want to do is to bring the panel of young people who are participating with me on the stage. I'm going to call you up, and you should come and take a seat. Vianney, since you're up, Vianney is 20 years old and lives in the Far Rockaway section of Queens with her mom, father, and brother. She is a graduate of Youth on Stage and has participated in several Operation Conversation Cops and Kids demonstration workshops. She's traveled the country with me serving as a spokesperson for development, and we're going to hold our applause. Jihao Chen is 17 years old. He'll be a senior at James Madison High School. He lives in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. He participated in the Development School for Youth and also in our Cops and Kids demonstration workshop. Zaire Porter is 21 years old, attends Potsdam University in Potsdam, New York. He's majoring in theater and with a minor in communication. He lives with his mom in Bed-Stuy. He's a graduate of Youth on Stage and has appeared in 2 Cops and Kids demonstration workshops. And Zaire Crump is 18 years old, just graduated from high school, lives in East Orange. He's a development school for youth graduate. He's a track and field athlete, and he volunteers with Youth Outcry in New York and the Male Mentoring Program. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. This is driving me crazy. I just want to make an announcement before we begin the panel. I run a workshop in New York City called Operation Conversation Cops and Kids, which I've been doing since, I think, 2006. And we're going to be able to do some workshops here between cops and kids. We've done over 150 workshops, and we use our approach to acquaint the one with the other outside of their street meetings and acquaintances. And so if you run an after-school program with kids between the age of 15 and 19, and you're interested in learning more, could you speak to me or Gloria if I'm gone by the time this is over, and I'll call you and come and tell you more about it. It's a prize-winning program, and it's made a big difference. Thank you. So what I want to concentrate on today is the impact of poverty, of being poor in America. We live in a myth that in America, everyone, if they do the right thing, can make it, but everyone in America can't, and it doesn't happen. And that fact existed long before income inequality was the issue of the day. African Americans and Latinos are being left out, and I believe to often quell any real discussions and demands across the various populations of our country, the people who run it. They pretend that the failure in our community is something that we cause. I often share with poor whites that the deal that the country has made with them is that at least they are not black or brown, but they're poor and they also need us. So our work in psychology and politics with poor communities of color was influenced by the 60s and by the subjective experiences of myself and Dr. Fred Newman, both who grew up poor, he in the Bronx in the 1940s in a Jewish community, and me in a black community in Chester, PA in the 1960s. Newman often spoke about the immediate experience following his father's death of not only becoming welfare poor, but also of being related to in the ways that poor people are, the painful experience of people no longer having expectations of you. He also spoke about the experience of working in government-funded anti-poverty programs that had no expectations for the people they served, and an attitude towards the participants that whatever they got was good enough and they should be grateful because the poor don't deserve the best. I grew up in Chester, PA. I came away with a mission. My decision to become a psychologist was shaped by all the poverty and devastation that I experienced both in my family and in my neighbors. One of the things I always wondered about is how come people had all of this pain and they never spoke to it? And what I wanted to do was help people to give voice to it. There was rarely any conversation about how difficult or hard life was. People related to suffering as a constant, and obviously they had not been given the tools or opportunities to go beyond that. So when I went to college, I went to learn how to do something about poor people in pain. I thought, as the first person in my family to go, that my nieces and nephews were going to follow, but they didn't. They were destroyed by the poverty of our country and the communities. So I wasn't looking for explanations or theories. about the lives of poor people. I was looking for ways to help them grow and develop, to radically embrace who they were in the world, and to figure out how to build with that. A lot, when our communities are discussed these days, what gets focused on is violence. I just read this awful piece on Chicago where one weekend all of these people were killed. Violence is horrible. The fact that our kids have guns and they're shooting each other, it's horrible. But if we don't look at where does all that madness come from, how it's created, because the message is if you're poor, you live in a shelter, you don't have any money, and you miss meals, you should go to school and be good. That is so outrageous to me. And one of the reasons why we can't touch the violence is because we won't touch the poverty of the kids and their family. So I have no interest in covering this up. I like to make everybody feel as uncomfortable as they can about this because it's a huge discomfort, it's a huge outrage, and it's a huge failing of the people who run the country, of political people, of the educational system, of all the things that don't work for us and our kids. So I have the privilege of continuing a conversation with young people who I've been talking to several for many years. And I just want to thank them ahead of us plunging into this for agreeing to come out and do this with me. And I want you all to give them a great applause at the end and love them like we should love all of our children. So we're going to kick off. So, good morning. How was your trip? Are you wide awake? I want you to begin by sharing something that's been very hard for you in your life. And why don't we start with you, Deani? Just pick a thing.
The most recent thing that I've been going through is that I realized that I don't know how to be a functioning college student because no one in my family has gotten very far in college, and I don't have anyone to go to, and I don't feel very motivated because of the position that I'm in to continue.
You said you don't feel motivated.
Yeah, I don't feel very motivated.
Do you feel ashamed?
Yes.
And do you feel humiliated?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Thank you. Gio.
So the hardest thing for me growing up was
Can you hear?
So the hardest thing for me growing up was that I grew up as an only child of an immigrant family that came to America in the early 2000s. Growing up as an only child, I never had any mentors or peers to look up to. I only had my mom and dad, which they barely spoke any English. So growing up, it was very hard for me to find some sort of guidance to basically grow up in life.
Thank you. Next.
One recent hardship that I've been going through is, coming back from school and just having to see my friends, suffer through the effects of poverty and and it's hard to convince someone about opportunities that they are outside their own reality because they can never truly quite see them. So that's something that I'm dealing with. I know that seems like a lot, but it's something that I deal with every day.
Next. Thank you. Is that your,
One of the
put your mouth, yes. Yell.
one of the problems that I'm dealing with daily of my life, I have sickle cell anemia, and recently, just 2 weeks ago, I was in the hospital for 6 days because I had an allergic reaction to a medicine that's supposed to help me, and I've been plagued with it my whole life, but it recently, started hitting me hard a bit. and juggling that and the pressures of life and having to do this and that and being a young black male with dreads, it's in the stereotypes that you gotta put down. It's hard and it gets a little difficult at times.
So what's the pressures of your life?
Expectations. Besides my mom, I would be the only one going to college in my family. So it's like, and everyone expects me to be, the man of the household because my brothers are going and we really didn't have a father figure in our lives. So I had to take on the role of being, the man of the household at a very young age, 13 to be exact. So I have to live up to these expectations and I have to do this and I have to please certain people to, do what I gotta do.
When did you discover, how did you learn that you were poor?
How can I say? Well, my mom's basically like the sole breadwinner of my family. And I remember at one point we were living on Prince Street in the Prince Street projects before they knocked the building down. And as the sole breadwinner, she had to support roughly 8 to 9 people. My brothers, she has 4 kids, plus my 2 cousins, my aunt, my grandmother, and her boyfriend. And it was a lot on her, and she was barely making above 50, 40, if that, $1,000 a year. So, it was seeing that and then not being able to get certain things that I wanted, like the toys that I wanted and the clothes that I wanted, I had to settle for less. And basically, I remember a couple of times we had to get a couple of things from the Salvation Army just to get past, have an outfit for school. So.
Thank you, sweetie. How did you determine that you were poor?
I feel like, my mother and father just told me. And yeah, that was it. Like, my father, he quoted Kanye, he said, when you see new clothes, close your eyelids. So that's how I kind of knew we had it bad. But they kind of shielded me from that, from being or how can I phrase this, from having a poor mindset that I couldn't get certain things and I had to think a certain way. So I feel like, economically, we were poor, but they kind of like changed my attitude towards looking at certain stuff and, being more grateful.
What's a poor mindset?
I feel like having a poor mindset is, it's something like, I can't have this, so I don't deserve it. And my mother or father, or there was something wrong with my family that we couldn't have this or live in this certain place, so I'm not good enough to achieve something.
When did you discover, thank you, when did you discover you were poor?
I discovered when I was poor was when my parents came to me with.
Put your mouth closer to the mic.
I discovered when I was poor when my parents came to me with their billing statements and for the bills, since they couldn't read English, of course, but then I was still like 10, but they're still coming to me asking what this letter and bill meant, but I didn't even know. I was 10. I didn't know what banking statements were, but then realizing now, looking back at the numbers on that paper, I realized that we weren't that well financially off, and that's why they were pressuring me in school to keep on doing good, so I could basically make a change for our family.
Thank you.
I realized that I always knew that I wasn't rich, but I think I realized that I was poor when I had a conversation with you. My mom would always, before you went into a grocery store, give me a long speech about you shouldn't ask for this, don't ask me for anything before we get in here, don't embarrass me in this store. And so from that, I know okay, we don't have money, that's why she's telling me all these things. But from our conversations, I realized.
Mm-hmm. So what is your difficulties in college have to do with your poverty? How do you think about this?
I think it has a lot to do with poverty because The only reason why I don't know how to be a functioning college student is because no one in my family knows, no one in my family has gotten far in college, and that's because they don't have money. And they're not we're not surrounded by a bunch of people who are excelling academically or financially for that matter.
And why is that humiliating?
Because when you get to college, or at least when you get to college, it's your life is supposed to be happy after that, and my parents have certain expectations of me as a young lady, a good young lady going to college. They want me to get good grades, and I don't know how to do that. It's not that I'm not smart, it's just that I just don't know what I'm doing in college.
What are some of the other things in your life? Where do you live?
I live in Far Rockaway.
And what are some of the other indicators of your having grown up poor?
So a recent thing that happened to me was that I had to I watched I didn't watch, but my close friend got shot in his building in front of his mother and his sister and his nephews because he was trying to protect someone, and I don't think that would have happened if he was living in a poor place or in the neighborhood that I live in, because that's a normal thing and no one really cares about it.
What's painful about poverty for you?
What's painful about poverty is that when I see these kids in school that aren't that well like me with grades, that I realize that they are smarter than me, but then they're not willing to go that step ahead to study what I do. As you stereotypically, you might hear that Asians are the smartest, but then I see these kids in my class that know the answers but don't want to say anything. They're basically, they don't want to say anything. They're too lazy. They don't want to act like they know it because they might get made fun of.
So you're saying they have access to knowledge that you don't have because they're not poor, but they're not using it.
Well, I guess they are on poverty level, but then I know that they have the knowledge to excel, but they don't do it.
And why do you care about that?
Because, I have this friend who's African American. I've been with him since middle school, and I've watched him basically develop, right? I've been helping him out, but still he doesn't care about school. I get good grades and I try to help him. I notice that he's on the borderline 65-ish, but then for some reason he just doesn't have the motivation to excel with good grades.
Do you know what's going on in his life?
Honestly, I don't really know, but I know that his family's kind of like mine. He has brothers and sisters and immigrant parents that are struggling financially, that are basically pressuring him to study well in school, but with all the juggling and stuff, I guess he couldn't take the pressure.
Zaire, what's hard?
Which one?
I'm looking at you. I'm sorry.
Okay. Crazy. The hard part of realizing poverty, or
Living it, realizing it.
I think the hard part of realizing it is actually, I guess that's it's like an answer within itself. It's realizing that, you're privatized, and it's like, you expect that, like piggybacking off what he said, your parents don't put you in the mindset that, okay, you don't have this, so that it doesn't mean that you can't go get that. So it's like you always feel like you have access, and then it's like when you build yourself up to be like, okay, I'm gonna go do this and that, it's like, and it's not there, it's not available to you, it kind of like throws you back. It's like 2 steps forward and 4 steps back. And it's like, okay, what's next? So it's like, it's like a journey. It's like you have to realize how you can make it better for yourself. Prime example, years later, once I kind of got settled, we moved in with my grandma to help her out and stuff like that. And she didn't have power or gas, dead in the middle of winter. And I had 3 AP classes. And without power, there's no computers, no phones, and things of that nature. And it's like, it's very hard to, get things like that done. So, I had to take time out. I run track. I had to take time off track to basically go to the library, the local library, and basically get on the computers and study and get what I had to, do what I had to do. And all in all, it worked out for me at the end. But, realizing it, I think realizing it's like a blessing and a curse, because it makes you work harder than the average would when they know they have, okay, I have this. So it's, they don't take advantage of it. It's not like they really, pay attention to it because they know it's there. We know it's not there. So it's like we work harder to get, the necessities we need to have success in our lives.
How do you all feel about talking about this in front of a room full of strangers?
It's not the first time. Of course, we had this discussion, with you last time. So it's like, it's kind of, I'm building more of a comfort zone talking about it, instead of, having pent up anger and aggression and, being sad about it and not speaking on it, So it makes it easier to cope with, as I can say.
Okay. The other guy.
I feel like the hardest thing about poverty is the other things that it breeds in our communities. First, it gives young people a why me mindset, and also a mindset of helplessness, because we were born into this. There was nothing that we could have done to prevent us from being in poverty. And it also gives us a negative viewpoint of our parents. So somehow we blame them into thinking, we incorporate them into why we are in poverty. And the effects of poverty brings, as you were saying, violence. It brings a need to do whatever we need to do to survive. And life is definitely more than just surviving in an area long enough. It's about, having experiences and giving yourself an opportunity to find your purpose in life. And when you're impoverished, you're into survival mode. You're not into thriving mode. You're not taking all the opportunities that you're given, because there's a lot of extracurricular things that distract you from your goals. And then you have to go to school, and you have to deal with not understanding the material, because you already have a negative mindset, and there's already,
Can I stop you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So what's your helplessness look like?
What does it look like?
Yeah, when you experience feeling helpless, what does that look like?
It looks like I feel like for other people, it looks like, hanging out in the streets, getting involved with crime, because you have to, as I alluded to before, survive. So that's also a form of helplessness.
How do you feel about talking about this in front of a room of people?
I feel like this is something that needs to be talked about, and hopefully we can give some insight into why young people are suffering and the effects of their suffering, because they're not just, born suffering. There's reasons behind that.
Gia, how do you feel about having this conversation publicly?
Well, having this conversation opens up opportunities for me because I get to share some struggles of the Asian community. Like in school, well, Asians are known for their academic intelligence, but then that's also a strength and a weakness, because though we have that academic skill, we lack in creativity and our voice. One thing that I realized over the past few years is that no matter how smart you are, no one will know unless you speak up about it.
Have you been speaking up?
Ever since I joined All Stars DSY, I realized that I've been speaking up more, showing my intelligence, and I've been getting recognized by my teachers, and I've been getting recommendations for AP classes that I would have never gotten if I've been in the corner of the classroom that was basically the kid that no one knew but got hundreds on every single test.
Thank you, Ben. So, Vianney, why don't you go to your teachers and say to them, I'm black, I'm poor, I live in the project, my family is struggling, we have crap. I came here because I want to be a scholar and I want to be as smart as I possibly can. I've never seen this stuff before, and I need your help.
Because they look at me like I'm crazy, I think.
And how do you know that?
Actually, I didn't go up to the teacher and tell him like all of that, but I did like try to reach out to him, and he sort of like didn't respond very well.
How did he respond?
Well, he wasn't very helpful. He kind of like gave me like a tough look, and so I got like discouraged about that. Yeah.
Gave you a what?
Like he kind of told me like tough luck, like it's too late, like I'm sorry, I can't help you. So
Was it late?
it was, well, it wasn't that late. But it was kind of late. Just a little bit. Just a little.
So, given all the access that you have to the possibility of getting help, why aren't you doing that?
I feel like I should, and the more you say this to me, the more like I get it through my thick skull. But I just feel like it's humiliating, but I know that I have to like work through the humiliation and, I don't know, get through it.
And what are you humiliated about?
I just don't want people to look at me like I'm a failure because I don't know how to like work college or like work the college system. Like, I just don't want people to look at me that way. So that's something that like I'm struggling with.
So what about my looking at you like you're a failure because you're failing to use what you have? I'm talking about stuff that we've done at the All-Stars. Mm-hmm. So why?
I don't know.
We're close. We have these kinds of conversations. I'm just trying to understand this. I think you're humiliated. So are you humiliated in front of us?
No, I think this is a safe environment, but I'm humiliated by everyone except for y'all, except for you guys.
So Does that mean that you're humiliated in front of white professors or something?
Yes. And in front of my family who thinks that like I'm succeeding in college.
So-
Can I say something about
Yes.
that? Yeah, sometimes I also feel the same way. Like, going to school upstate is cold and, racist. Those are the two main, characteristics of, most SUNY schools. So trying to say that, first, they don't even want to hear that you're black, first of all. And that you're struggling, that already feeds into their, negative stereotypes and, that you're failing. And so it's hard to ask for help because you already have that mindset of, I've already gotten this far without help. And if you did have help, it was from people that, look like, us. And when you're going to a professor who doesn't really understand your experience of poverty and also of being African American or any minority, it's kind of hard for them to relate to anything you're saying.
So, I went to college 100 years ago at Hofstra University, and I took a psychology class. And for me, learning how to be a psychologist, even though I rejected a lot of what I came to learn from traditional institutions, was how I was going to impact upon our communities and do something about the suffering in my family. So I took my first exam and I got a D. And the teacher was a white woman. Her name was Dr. Hofeller. And I went to her office and I said to her, I can't fail psychology because this isn't just a course. And this woman taught me how to study. I will never, ever, ever forget her. So people, black and white, and I understand that we come from communities where there are not a lot of white people, but you all also have been to the All-Stars, and you probably met more white people in your life than you've ever in your life. So it can't just be about them, because there are people out there, white who will help you and black who won't, and all kinds of things. So what's keeping you from putting that demand on the people in Brooklyn College or upstate, or calling and saying, I need to rehearse a conversation? What's going on?
I think for me, it's just like frustrating that I get frustrated, and my frustration like keeps me from like asking for help, because like it's hard to like have people expect you to do something that to you it's like impossible. Like given all the circumstances, people still expect me to like do something that's practically impossible. And so like that kind of keeps me from like asking for help, because I guess it's my pride, and I just want people to see me as like I have it all together, but it's just like difficult when people have like expectations.
Well, what are your expectations of you?
My expectations of myself, I feel like it changes every single day. So I guess today I expect myself to like be open to like having these conversations, like hard conversations with other people.
What do you think about all this?
Well, hearing about college, I know. Hearing about, it's okay. Hearing about college is, it's a little mind-boggling because.
Talk into the mic.
Okay. in September, I'll be going off to NJIT, and I'm doing the, thank you. Thank you.
Well, we don't know what he's going to do when he gets there.
And it's a program. I'll do 2 years at NJIT and 3 years at Georgia Tech. So, and I'm going for computer engineering. And just hearing about it, it's a little mind-boggling, but, and I feel like I'm prepared, but not prepared, if you understand what I'm saying. I'm prepared mentally, but educational-wise, maybe not because of the curriculum in my schools, but that's here or there. I don't know. It's surreal.
I think that's your power. I think part of what you have to do is use that humiliation and the reality of your lives and teach the people in these institutions where you're going what that is, because otherwise it's very self-destructive. Your schools were lousy. You didn't build them. You're poor. Your lives are a mess, and people love you. You have all of that at the same time. So that's what you have to work on. And if you're doing it not just because you're concerned about your grades, you all are leaders. Are you a leader?
Yes.
And I don't mean in some highfalutin way. In a way, what you have are some tools that could be of tremendous value, not just to you. If you think that you're not just doing it for you, it makes a huge difference. And that the humiliation is sort of private. The hell with humiliation. Go tell them I'm humiliated. I'm stupid. I don't know how to do this. You folks didn't teach me. Teach me. That's leading with it. Yes.
I feel like what's wrong with today's society is that kids, they believe that just passing that 65 mark is succeeding, but in reality, it's not. In my school, the passing grade is above 65, and in most schools like that, who have that above 65 mark, kids think that a 66 or a 70 is succeeding, but in reality, it's not. What's succeeding is like above 85. That's when you really know the topic. But when the school set that 65 mark, the kids aren't thinking ahead to that 100. They're thinking to that above, 1 point ahead of 65. They're aiming for 70s, but that's not really good for their academic skills.
I hear you, and groups of people come with stereotypes in this country. We are very, very good at doing that. So as you said earlier, Asians are smart. Not all Asians are smart. I mean, I'm sure there are Asians who are not smart, but that's a stereotype. The stereotype for black people in this country is that we're dumb. And that has been historically constructed because somebody has to give an explanation for all the things that the country has done to people of color. So I don't think kids learn this thing that you're saying. I think that it has a lot to do with where they are and how people are being related to. It has to do with the fact that your teacher, he doesn't have to, but he won't take into consideration who you are in the world. So that's why young people have to learn how to say to people, this is who I am. You wouldn't even send your kids to the schools that I've spent years in. And if you depersonalize it, in the same ways that people have to come to recognize that we didn't get in a room and people say, do you want to be wealthy or do you want to be poor? And we said, oh, we like to be poor. It has to do with the circumstances of our lives and the world, and that's what you all need to lead. The floor is open for questions.
And my mother never saw a grade. She, now kind of jokes about that, the miraculously disappearing grades. Everyone thought I was fine, and I never told anyone that I was failing. And so this was over 20 years ago at this point. I dropped out. I was humiliated. I was ashamed. And the truth of the matter is that for a very long time, even probably up until the last 10 years, I always felt like I was very far behind my friends who had managed to finish when they were supposed to finish and do what they needed to do. And what I did in the 4 years that I wasn't in school was wait tables. And it opened my eyes to a few realities. One is that you could do this until you were 60. And waiting tables was not something that I wanted to do until I was 60. But also, I started to ask myself a couple of questions. And the biggest question that I started to ask myself was, do I know that I am smart?
Lauren, I'm going to stop you there. But
Yeah.
I actually want to thank you so much for that comment. Do you want
Thank
to
you.
say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I appreciate your comments, last question. I would love to. I was just, going to say that.
Good. Questions?
First off, I want to affirm you all because your stories resonate with mine. And I haven't gotten to the other side of it, but I am where I am today. And so there's hope. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you guys, which is something that I continually and professionally have to struggle with and think about as I am moving, into a different stage of my life out of impoverished situations, is basically, how do you guys cope? What are those mechanisms that you find that help you deal with those things when you feel like you don't have a language to explain your situation or how you feel, or you feel like other people don't get you? What are those mechanisms that you guys find to be able to navigate this sort of thing?
Okay, we're going to come back. I'm going to take a series of questions. I wrote that one down. Go. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I again commend you for your bravery in sharing your stories. My question is, today you're in a room full of resources, and not a lot of times young people are involved in the conversations about how to use those resources. So my question is, in your opinion, what resources do you think are necessary to help you get to the next level, and how do you put yourself to be a part of that conversation?
Thank you.
You were feeling imposter syndrome, in that I'm kind of like really don't belong here. So piggybacking on what you were saying about, do you realize that you're smart? Because especially if you're in an environment where you're in the two colleges is racially diverse for the first time, and you're among students you're not accustomed to competing against, you might feel like, maybe I don't belong here, maybe I should know this. And if you do feel that your school is inadequately prepared to, you might be humiliated to go up and say, I really don't know this. And I think what we're trying to say is that it's okay not to know it, that you are smart. It's not your fault that you didn't learn what may have been needed, but you can learn it, you can catch up, and you will.
Gabrielle?
I also didn't do well in school at all. My family didn't have a lot of money, and they didn't do well in school, and I couldn't get a scholarship anywhere when I went to college.
And you're not even black.
And I'm not exactly. I was kind of in crisis, but I wanted to just share something that I learned about humiliation from the All-Stars co-founder, late Dr. Fred Newman, told me this thing about humiliation once that I found so helpful. And he said, what humiliation, he was a therapist, and he said, what humiliation is, it's not how you feel, that you feel bad, that's not humiliation, in particular, that particular emotion of humiliation, it's the activity of covering up how you feel that makes you feel humiliated. Amen. And the reason I found that really helpful is that when I feel humiliated, it gives me something to do, to combat that, because I realize what I have to do if I want to feel humiliated is I want to have to figure out how to not cover that up. And that will actually not make me feel more humiliated, that's going to make me feel less humiliated. So I just wanted to share that as something I've learned.
Thank you.
Yes?
Good morning, everybody. My question to you guys is, do you think without the All-Stars project, you guys would be where you at today? Or even better?
Okay, so why don't we start there?
Well, without the All-Stars project, I joined DSY, Development School for Youth, and they work on our developmental skills and speech. So when I first began DSY, I obviously couldn't speak publicly to a crowd. I had trouble speaking with people like one-on-one with eye contact, because I wasn't the person who would speak out in class. I was the one that would just do everything that you're supposed to and then hand in your work. I wasn't the one that was participating in class. But now with the help of DSY, I know how to speak to people, and I know how to work in the professional world.
Thanks, sweetie. Next.
Well, literally before DSY, I had to leave. I was in a debate club in my school, so I kind of knew how to present myself in front of people and how to talk well, how to speak well, and how to,
Talk loud.
That too. I know better. But with debate, it kind of kept me grounded, on the same level with the All-Stars project, which I always say is a cheat code, because it is. With the All-Stars project, it took me to another level. I most definitely wouldn't have had an internship until maybe my junior year in college. I don't know. I always get speechless when people ask me this question about All-Stars. Because it's what can you really say? No, expression or, anything could do it justice from the amount of help that they give you. And it's I'm choked up now, and I'm tearing up. Oh, my God.
We taught you how to weep. Next.
I feel like All-Stars, I was part of Youth on Stage, and they just told me the importance of a performance and the importance of presenting yourself. And, as Shakespeare said, all the world is a stage. And in this world, you're going to have to do some performances that you're not going to like. And it depends on how you perform, the situation that you put yourself in based on that performance. So if anything, that is what the All-Stars taught me personally.
Thanks, sweetie. Deani.
I highly recommend All-Stars to everyone. I think it's a great place to send your people to. I think one of the greatest things that I've experienced in my life as a result of going to All-Stars was gaining so much exposure to things that I never thought that I could be a part of. One of the things that I love to do now is just write for theater, and that's all because of the awesome theater that's there. And DSY has played a great role in my development as a business person. So, yeah.
One thing I just want to say in honest conversation to the adults, people give pep talks to our kids oftentimes in a way of covering over what is actually going on in their lives. And if you cover over what is actually going on in people's lives, people think there's something wrong with them in their lives. These young people grew up like many people in our communities. It's despair and pain, and there's sometimes fun, and your parents love you, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and our community doesn't need pep talks. It needs to have environments where they can grow and develop. It makes a huge difference because then they know how to make use of it in the world. So on that note, congratulations to 4 of my favorite people, and thank you.